So Genshin Impact in 2026 has something very interesting, because compared to the other gacha games that are in the market right now, it's the one that is most inspired in another game that is not a gacha, and that game was obviously Breath of the Wild, and no shade to the other games in the gacha market, obviously, because like this is simply just different approaches on how to make a game and the source material that they inspire from. Being Breath of the Wild an inspiration for Genshin Impact comes from a lot of advantages and a lot of disadvantages and things that can be a little frustrating. I'm gonna talk about the areas of Liyue, Dragonspine and Mondstadt. Okay, I haven't played this game since 2021 if I'm not mistaken, so there will be a lot of things that I might have outdated, but I'm gonna tell you my experience after returning to this game for so long. This game has a lot of interesting aspects, but considering this game took a lot of inspiration of Breath of the Wild, one thing that the level design simulates a lot and enhance it, enhance it maybe is not the word, but it just repeats even more, is how vertical these maps are. And the thing is, like, since you are in an area, this the starting area, you often have this issue, inconvenience or frustration that you're gonna run out of stamina, because the level design is just simply way too vertical. And yes, there are zones eventually that you can bounce on pillars of air, bounce pads or stuff like that, or there are other areas that you can just choose where to climb and such, but for the most part, yeah, you are gonna rely on your stamina. And don't get me wrong, all these areas that are Mondstadt, Dragonspine, well, Dragonspine I'm gonna talk about in a bit, but Liyue and Mondstadt, they are fun to explore overall. Like, you're gonna find a lot of things to do, you're gonna have a lot of stimulus, even in areas that you already visit, right? Like, because there are times eventually that you want to go and grab something and that's it, but you will have just, well, exactly like this in here, enemies spawning out of nowhere, so you will never feel really that you are completely alone playing this. The world feels very alive due to that. I understand that it can be a little frustrating if you're just wanting to go and do one thing and only one thing, but for the most part it's something that I appreciate, how alive this game feels and how much depth the world it has. Because yes, the world, you don't just combat, you do a lot of other stuff, there are a lot of puzzles, there are a lot of chests, and even though you have a lot of stimulus in the terms of the things that you can do, it's not a game that I would say induces dopamine such as, well, any competitive game or anything like that. At the end of the day, it's a single player game. It doesn't matter if it's live service, but you are alone in the world. Yes, you can play co-op, but if you know, you know. But in regards of the world and the exploration and how just exploring Mondstadt and Liyue feels, overall, apart from feeling immersed and feeling very easy to, not to traverse particularly, but just to move around. It's kind of weird that I say this because they are essentially the same thing. One thing is that the tools you have to traverse the map. In the first areas, you don't have as much as I mentioned previously. However, when you are not in those areas that you need to climb a lot, you do feel that is easy to find what you need to look for, and that's because this game has a lot of visual clarity. Like, if you check modern open world games nowadays, you wouldn't be able to check that mountain for the most part, and that's because usually open world games nowadays tend to have a fog that sometimes it is for just to give ambience to the game, and other times it's simply just because the game needs to run better and the optimization is all over the place in a lot of games nowadays. So having an outdated engine, as far as I'm concerned, maybe I'm wrong in this one, I'm not sure if they use Unreal Engine 4 for this game or which engine they use actually, but the reality is that it runs pretty well in these areas. At least in these areas. I'm not sure how it's gonna be for later, but in these areas they run pretty well, and I as far as I remember, maybe this is something that changed over the time, but in phone, these areas still runs pretty well. Just the fact that you are over here and you can check the mountain. Well, in my case, I'm gonna TP because it's gonna take me less time, but you can just come to the area that you were checking. This is what you see in modern games, right? Like this fog that you're checking here, that in this case, it has a canon explanation. As far as I'm concerned, there is a snowstorm that surrounds this area and you need to clear it out. Correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been so long since I played the game and the story is not my strength for this game. If I have some issues with the traversing in the older areas, in this area in particular, they enhance even more. The thing is, like, on paper, this area makes sense that you are always freezing out, right? Like, every time that you are walking around this area, you have this little bar in the bottom of your, well, in the top of your HP, but in the bottom of your screen, that is gonna tell you, hey, you need to go out and look for a torch or else you're gonna die freezing. And don't worry, I get it from a standpoint of lore, and I get it from a standpoint of, okay, makes sense because this area there is snow and the elemental reactions in this game are very important. I'm gonna talk about them in a little, but I get it from that point. Player feedback wise and how it makes me feel, this area is annoying. Especially if I'm playing a character that Eula, and you know, Eula is a character that is bad in terms of power. That doesn't mean you cannot do open world content with her, it just means that it's not a character that you are gonna do endgame, for example, right? And the problem with this is that if this area is annoying to traverse and you are playing a character that is weak in terms of power spike, yeah, it's just gonna make this area even more frustrating than what already is. Right now, it's not so bad, to be honest, but that's obviously because I already cleared out this area and I already got rid of a lot of the issues that I had with the storm. That doesn't mean I won't freeze if I'm not standing next to a torch, right? But it just means that it's not as aggressive as it was before. And I understand this is a design choice eventually, that this area, it means to be very aggressive and it means to be not comfortable to move around, right? It makes a lot of sense, like I'm not unaware of it. However, that doesn't mean it's a fun area and I'm playing a video game, right? So every time that I come here, I just wanna get my stuff done and move on because I just don't wanna be here. Another thing that is super interesting about Genshin Impact, and I'm gonna say something that maybe you will hear it and you will like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's the fact that the cities feel very unique and different from one another. So, like, I haven't checked house by house, wood by wood, tile by tile, if they reuse assets or not. My guess is that they are gonna do. Like, eventually when you have an open world and it's so big, it's normal that you reuse assets, right? But my point is that even if they did this, which I don't know, but I have to assume that they do, otherwise, I don't know, black magic, it doesn't matter like which city you are gonna figure it out, like just visually, in which region you are, because the color palette changes, the buildings change, like even the clothing of the NPCs change. Like, there are just a lot of visual elements inside these cities that they are very different from one another, and I'm not sure if this keeps being a thing later on, but I can guarantee you that in these 2-3 areas that are in the first starting areas, this is something that happens and it's very impressive. Another thing that is interesting to also point out with this game is that obviously it's for a wider audience compared to other gacha games. And what I mean by this is that if you never really played much open world games or not at all, or even if you never really played video games at all, I would say this is a good entry for people. Because, like, yes, for sure, like, there are some things that can be annoying and yes, for sure, there are things that they over-explain a lot, but that's the point, right? Like, if you never played a game like this, you're just gonna have a ton of information to know, so it makes more than sense that you need a lot of explanation and then that you need to pay attention. If you start skipping what they are trying to tell you and you never played any of these type of games, you're just not gonna understand it. It's not because it's super hard and complex, it's nothing like that, but if you never played an open world game, there are just a lot of systems, especially in a gacha game, there are even more. And it also makes sense this is the case, if I'm being honest, because let's face it, like Genshin Impact, if it wasn't the one or the very first open world gacha game, it was the first one that it got very popular, right? So at the end of the day, it's more than normal. It has a lot of over-explanation because most of the people never really played another game like this before. Another thing that it does this game, obviously, is the climate weather changes. That this is also something that Breath of the Wild does well, that they change how you're gonna traverse this map, what things you should be aware of or not, because the elemental effects also react to this. Like, now the characters are easy to be frozen because it's raining, so it's easier to make them get frozen because they are wet right now. These type of things, they aren't really related itself to the exploration, but it does give you a sense of not only immersion, but also a sense of, oh, the powers that my characters does actually has a different reaction and a different change in the world itself, right? Climate changes have different reactions, and those reactions depending on the area you are and the enemy you're fighting to, and how those enemies like affect, and those enemies like depending also what type of elemental resistances they have, right? You need to keep in mind that these enemies, for example, this enemy is resistant to fire, right? So the elements of fire are not gonna damage that enemy itself, but they're gonna be damaged by other elements. It's just more complex than just, hey, let's just make it rain over here and that's it. And I think that's pretty much it, what I had to tell you about so far about these older areas of Genshin Impact. Eventually, like, I'm gonna miss a lot of things that are related with the lore, or things that I said that aren't really very well explained, but I'm gonna do my best. If you want to see more content about Genshin Impact or open world games, subscribe, leave a like. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace out.